Shalom, Israel. I just watched a video that I'm gonna play an excerpt of from RT News. I actually kind of like RT News a little better than CNN and MSNBC. They actually show world issues a little more in depth and aren't biased on their reporting, which, a whole nother subject is, it's actually a Russian news channel that's here in the United States. That's crazy. A country that claims that they're pretty much enemies with another country, and they let their news channels report news in their country. Anyway, so I guess they will have to do that because CNN is everywhere. But anyway, this video I just watched is showing this guy. I forget his name. I've seen him somewhere before, but he's one of these fake Jews. But he's actually for Palestine having their land back. And I believe his dad was a general or something like that in the Israeli army. And he's being interviewed by Rick Sanchez. And something that he says is what made me actually do this video, because everyone wants to say that they are the real Jews and all of this kind of stuff, but this guy is actually telling you right here that they're not, in so many words. And I'm gonna just play it and let him say it himself. And then Rick Sanchez said something about the Native Americans and whatnot, but that's neither here nor there. So I'm gonna just go ahead and play it.
State of Israel and the Israeli government wanted two completely different things. The state of Israel and the Israeli governments, for the last, since Israel was established, want the entire country. They base their right to that country on a biblical narrative, which is, of course, mostly mythical and not historic. And they've got the power, and they've got the weapons, and they've got the money, so they're succeeding.
So he just said out of his own mouth that they base their claim to the land of Israel on a biblical narrative, but their biblical narrative is mythical because they aren't the people. He didn't say they aren't the people, but he just said mythical because they aren't the real Israelites. He knows that they aren't the real Israelites. I'm gonna let a little more play. Rick Sanchez said something there.
But even if it was historic, should the American Indians, should the Sioux and the Arapaho and the other Indians, the Hopis, come forward in the United States now and say, look, we want our land back? And would that be a legitimate argument? And is that not the same argument that the Israelis often make?
Actually, I think the Native American argument is similar to the Palestinian argument in that they do have a legitimate right. The sad thing is that the genocide of the Native Americans is practically succeeded, and there are very few left, and they have no chance of ever reclaiming what they had. Palestinians, the genocide is ongoing. They are being killed, but there are enough of them, and they're strong enough to where they can actually get what they deserve. They are the historical, they are the people of the land, not people like me whose grandparents came from Ukraine.
You're an Israeli. Your father...
So he just basically said himself, his people come from Ukraine. And we know, well, people who are in the truth know that these Ashkenazi Jews and a lot of these so-called Israelis aren't descendants of the true Israelites. Now, he's saying that Palestinians do have a claim to the land, which that's kind of not true either, because biblically and historically, those people of that land were dark people. They were actually African, of African descent, Hamites, Philistines. Those people that are there now are mostly a blend of Ishmael and Ishmaelites and some of these fake Jewish people. So and a few Egyptians, but those Egyptians over there in Egypt now, a lot of them are Ishmaelites, biblically, historically. So I just wanted to put that out there. The truth, there's only one truth. So even if they put this out here, most people will overlook it. The only thing that they'll pay attention to is the fact that Israel is planning on building some type of highway that's 10 stories high, and it's going to go from the Gaza Strip to the West Bank or something like that. And that way the Palestinians can, it's crazy. So the Palestinians can use that highway to get back and forth or whatnot, and not disturb the Israelis, which is crazy because these people are not the people of the book. They don't have the spirit of the Father. The only spirit they have is the spirit of their ancestor or progenitor, who is Esau, Edom. And that's pretty much it. That's the spirit they have. They take lands by war. They own most of the so-called central banks in the world, and they get the United States to back them and the EU to back them on anything they try to do. These Israelis, that's why they don't actually say Israelite. They know they aren't the people of the book, at least the powers that be over that country since 1948. No, they're not the people of the book. They know they're not the Israelites. They aren't descended from any Israelites. Only thing that they can do when they go back to that time period is to show that they are those people who were the Herodians, followers of Herod, who was an Edomite, and other Edomites who lived in Jerusalem. That's who they are. So that's all I wanted to play. Let me play it. I'm gonna play it one more time. Let's see if I can get it back to where it was. Play it one more time. Hear what he says here. That they're not biblically, but it's mythical. Goddamn devil.
Peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis more, I imagine, right?
Yeah. But the thing is, we have to remember that what I want, or what Palestinians want, or what people who want to live in the world as normal human beings want, and what the state of Israel and the Israeli government want are two completely different things. The state of Israel and the Israeli governments, for the last, since Israel was established, want the entire country. They base their right to that country on a biblical narrative, which is, of course, mostly mythical and not historic. And they've got the power, and they've got the weapons, and they've got the money, so they're succeeding. And that's.
But even if it was historic, should the American Indians, should the Sioux and the Arapaho and the other Indians, the Hopis, come forward in the United States now and say, look, we want our land back? And would that be a legitimate argument? And is that not the same argument that the Israelis often make?
Actually, I think the Native American argument is similar to the Palestinian argument in that they do have a legitimate right. The sad thing is that the genocide of the Native Americans is practically succeeded, and there are very few left, and they have no chance of ever reclaiming what they had. Palestinians, the genocide is ongoing. They are being killed, but there are enough of them, and they're strong enough to where they can actually get what they deserve. They are the historical, they are the people of the land, not people like me whose grandparents came from Ukraine.
You're an Israeli. Your father was part of the IDF, so you're as Israeli as they come, right?
Yeah.
True blue, I suppose you could say. But yet you have differences with the Israeli government, especially their foreign policy. So do a lot of Americans, and yet it seems at this particular time in America, probably worse than it's ever been, if you disagree with Israelis' foreign policy, you're then branded as being anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
Can you love Jewish people and disagree with Israelis' foreign policy? And if not, why not?
Yeah. Well, I have in my family, besides my father, who's a general, a president of the State of Israel and a signer of the Declaration of Independence. So it is as Israeli as you can get. And supporting Jewish people and liking Jewish people and being Jewish has absolutely nothing to do with supporting and accepting the State of Israel.
Right. So that's another thing. So they always holler anti-Semitic, and it's really Shemitic. And Shem actually had more than Isaac. You know, there are other people who are Shemitic, like Ishmaelites, the Arabs. They're Shemitic, so they don't holler anti-Semitic or Shemitic when someone says something about them. You know, either way, he just said it himself out of his own mouth that he comes from the Ukraine. Most of his people come from pretty much up north, Poland, Germany, Ukraine, all those areas. And it's just amazing. Hope this edified everyone. And I'll see you on the next one in a minute.